Thanks, Robbie. Well, thank you for having me. I'm going to be doing an ecstatic speech. Ecstatic dance is where you let the music move you. So an ecstatic speech is where I'm going to let the speech move me. So I want to start just by showing you my hemp staff. So this is cannabis. And it grew from a seed to an 18-foot tall tree in 5 months. And this war on consciousness that we're all waking up to has been going on for a very, very long time. And 80 or 90 years ago, as part of that war on consciousness, they took the queen of plants, cannabis, hemp, from humanity. That was 80 years ago. And right now, cannabis is coming back, just in time to save the world. So I hope... Sorry? Yeah. So what I want to do now is I just want to read the lyrics of a song that I think sums things up for me and for where I'm at the moment. Certain forces active upon the earth aim to artificially suppress the natural evolution of human consciousness. It may come as unnerving news to some to hear that humanity is constantly being bombarded by forces and events that are beyond our control. It is these forces that aim to target the very spaces in which humanity has a modicum of free choice and free will. The perpetual battlefield is what we know as our everyday lives, our education, our work, our leisure, and our conscious thinking. Yet the armaments of this struggle are not guns, tanks, aeroplanes, bombs, or battle cruisers. It is much more subtle than this. It is a war that targets not only the present, but the very long-term future. And it has been going on for as long as humankind has existed on planet Earth. What is this war? It is a battle for our minds, how we think. In short, it is a war on consciousness. I want to introduce you to a new word. The word is called word code. And word code, W-O-R-D-C-O-D-E. The definition of this word, the words and associations that make up your mind's memory. The words you think, speak or write. A conversation is a sharing of word code. If we were to record every word you spoke for 1 week, counted them up and gave you back a word code map with the words you said the most, the biggest, right down to the words you didn't say at all. This map is your world. Change your words to change your world. What we speak about, we bring about. We need to have conversations that matter because conversations become matter. Our word code has been subverted by a lifetime of multinational funded mass media advertising, programming, propaganda, lies, half-truths, cover-ups and fear-mongering. For example, we've all been programmed and totally believe the following lies or half-truths. Never look at the sun. Sunlight gives you skin cancer. The consequences are fear sunlight. You need meat for protein. Lie. You need dairy for calcium. Lie. Eat more animals. suffering. If you eat suffering, you suffer. Water is just H2O, half-truth. Tap water is just fine, lie. Harvest the best quality water. It is very, very important. We are 71% water, our brain is 81% water. Water is not just water. And the consequences of those two lies are unconscious water consumption. Marijuana is the devil's lettuce. Reefer madness propaganda. Cannabis is a loser's drug. Half-truth. The consequences, fear the queen of plants. The intention of my talk today is to connect, to have fun and learn, and to share word code ideas to help you free your mind, understand hemp's role, and raise your vibration to love, joy, and peace. I've been shopping the spiritual supermarket on a spiritual journey since my amazing mother took our whole family to learn transcendental meditation when I was 14. 4 years ago, my beautiful mother died after a 16-year Alzheimer's experience. 3 years ago, my father died. 2 years ago, my last two teenage children left home. And last year, on the 6th of January, I dropped my 19-year-old off at Outward Bound, and I proceeded to watch every sunrise from a motorhome for the first 9 months of last year. I did that with my dog Pete, who I just put back in the car. And at the end of after 9 months, so in September last year, I came back from 9 months of watching sunrises and living basically as a minimalist monk in a motorhome, having very few conversations with people and lots of solitude, and seeing actually just how little we need to be happy. The more you own, the more owns you. Less is more. By the way, I'm wearing shoes today, but only because I've got a cut toe. I also have not worn shoes virtually for the last year and a half. So the last 3 months of last year I spent in Christchurch building a hemp tiny home. It's actually a mobile hemp cave. It's on a trailer. It's 3.6 metres by 3 metres. It's got 4 walls of hempcrete, a roof of hempcrete, and a foot of hempcrete in the floor, and some recycled timber on top of that. On the 28th of December last year, I towed that caravan to Golden Bay, and for all of this year, I've continued to watch every sunrise and to start and to have conversations that matter about the very subjects that we're talking about today. I've moved to Golden Bay. What I've discovered is that Golden Bay is the home of the psychedelic black sheep of the family. All the people that moved to Golden Bay, I haven't met one person that's moved to Golden Bay that didn't answer yes to the notion that they are the psychedelic black sheep of the family. So basically I'm in Golden Bay because I have become a sun worshipper, and I have realised the incredible power of watching the sunrise. I talked about this idea, never look at the sun. This is the biggest lie, I believe. This is the biggest lie I know. If you have belief, you have doubt. I have no doubt. I know from experience, putting my own body into it, the power of watching the sunrise. So never look at the sun is the lie we believe, because it should say never look at the sun, comma, except at sunrise and sunset, where it's not only perfectly safe to look at the sun, it's the single healthiest thing you can do. It's the best return on investment that you can make for your health. And there are at least 6 reasons why watching the sunrise is so powerful. The first reason is that you can look directly at the sun in the first 30 minutes and the last 30 minutes of the day, because there are no harmful UVA and UVB light. So the first benefit of being up at sunrise is that you can look directly at the sun. And when you look at the sun, the light from the sun, and we need to think about it not as light, we need to think about it as information, light code, the primordial vibration from which we all came. Without Mother Earth would be a rock if it wasn't for the unconditional love, light of Father Sun raining down on all of us equally, abundantly, consistently, on everyone, always. This is the best place to hide something is in plain sight. Who's heard that? Well, the sun has been hidden in plain sight, and now they're putting chemicals in the air and nanoparticles and reflections to keep more of the sun away from us. We need to fall back in love with the sun and become sun worshippers and bring back this ancient tradition. So the first benefit of being at sunrise is you can look directly at the sun, and this light code, this information from the sun, enters the windows of the soul, the 2 outwardly looking eyes. We have 2 eyes for looking outward at the duality of the 3rd dimension of Earth, where there are dualities, polarities, and we've just got a new one being created, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. So when you look directly at the sun at sunrise, the light from the sun travels through the 2 outwardly looking eyes, and there is a direct path from behind our eyes, where light travels to the pineal gland, the 6th sense, the seat of the soul, and it activates or decalcifies the pineal gland. And this is our connection to the spirit world. And by looking directly at the sun, we engage that. So that's the first benefit is we can look at the sun because it's perfectly safe and do sun gazing. The second benefit of being outside at sunrise, and you don't actually have to be looking at the sun to get this benefit, but when you're outside at sunrise, the light frequency at that time at that hour sets your circadian clock precisely. And this is very powerful, so now your body knows what to do at different times. And the first thing that it does at that time is it makes serotonin. And serotonin is a chemical that's going to keep you happy all day, and this is why you cannot have a bad day if you see the sunrise, because you're high on your own supply. You've made serotonin. Now when the light goes down tonight, and there is no light, as long as you don't have junk light in your house, keep candles and red lights at night. If you've got no light, that tells your body it's time to make melatonin. And it makes melatonin from serotonin. So when you get serotonin in the morning and then don't have junk light after the sun goes down, you get a better night's sleep, you sleep deeper. And a good night's sleep is critical. A bad night's sleep doesn't just impact you for one day, it impacts you for 3 days. It is the single most important thing to get right, your sleep. The third benefit of being outside at sunrise is that it means that you will not, it primes your body so that you won't get sunburned later on, right? And I can attest to that because I spent many a day this summer in Golden Bay, outside an hour before the sun rises, waiting with an eyes open meditation. The sun rises. Quite often I will go and stand in the water, waiting for the sun to come up over the horizon. I don't know what my point was here. Sorry? Oh, that's right. So basically it primed your body so that you won't get sunburned later on. And my own personal experience was I spent many a day outside from before sunrise all day. Right? Now you can't do that if you haven't been exposing your body to the sun. The fourth benefit of being outside at sunrise is it might just be the most beautiful thing that happens today. Epic nature, beauty heals. And when you witness awe-inspiring beauty, it is healthy and very, very good for you. So that's the fourth reason. And gosh, there's a couple of other reasons, and I can't recall what they are, but the benefits are immense. And so one of the things that I do, you may like to try something.
Less food, Mike.
What's that?
You don't eat as much.
You don't eat as much? Well, yeah, probably you don't eat as much. Well, okay, so yes, there's multiple other benefits. So if I was to get my torch now, watch this. So you can see how the light goes all the way through. It doesn't just make vitamin D on your skin. And that's, of course, is another benefit, although there's no vitamin D being made at the moment. There's a solar winter of about 8 weeks in New Zealand where you cannot make any vitamin D at all. But the light from the sun actually goes all the way through your body and it turbocharges your mitochondria. And you actually literally get free energy by exposing your body to sunlight. And as Robbie said, yes, you'll probably find that it will. You won't need as much food because you'll be getting all that free energy. Because literally we are batteries, and when this light goes through your body, it turbocharges your mitochondria. Can I have a show of hands? How many people here have an idea of what mitochondria are? Okay, and so that's about half. And my guess is you know what I knew. They are the nuclear powerhouse of the cell. Does anyone know anything more about mitochondria than that? No. Right, so yes, okay, someone. Well, so what I can tell you about mitochondria is that, first of all, what do they do? Mitochondria are in the cell. They take glucose and oxygen from the blood, and they make ATP, which is the energy the cell burns immediately. They make structured water, which the cell uses, and they make CO2, which comes out on the blood, right? So that's what they do. What's even more amazing is how many of them there are. There's not one per cell, which is what I kind of thought from biology, because there was one mitochondria in the cell. There are 1,000 to 2,000 mitochondria per cell. So how many cells have we got? 37 trillion. 20% of them, so about 7 trillion, don't have mitochondria, your red blood cells. All the rest of your cells do. So we've got 30 trillion cells times 1,000 to 2,000 mitochondria. And they produce your body's weight in ATP every day. So if you have any energy issues, it's mitochondria. Everything is about mitochondria. And remember, with energy, you can do anything. Without energy, you can't do anything. So there's a Facebook page called Mitochondriacs, which is worth looking at if you want to sort of really get into the whole mitochondria story. I would head there.
Would that help me, Michael, in my motocross riding since recovery?
Yeah, well, sunlight would absolutely help in recovery. Sunlight, basically, yes, completely. Get out in the sun, it will help with everything. Sunlight is also the ultimate disinfectant, right? And water is the universal solvent. And air, if we don't breathe, we're dead in 3 minutes. That's how important air is to us. And life-changing for me, 2 years ago I discovered breath work. And it's been absolutely phenomenal. Breath work, lie on your back, open your mouth, download a guided meditation, breathe for 1 hour as hard as you can. Flood your blood with oxygen. The oxygen gets taken to all of those 30 trillion times 1 to 2,000 mitochondria, bringing every one of your cells alive. And the great thing about breath work is basically exercise without the leg work. You know, it's just the breathing aspect of it. And the great thing about breath work is you can do it on a rainy day. And I can tell you it's not easy because no one taught us how to breathe. You know, and most people are not breathing deeply and fully enough, right? And they hold their breath when stressful situations happen, and that traps emotion in our body, which has to come out at a later date. So by teaching yourself to breathe better, you've got an amazing tool to calm yourself down, to warm yourself up, to give you energy, and so on. So I want to share a little bit of information now about my diet and food and what I've learned. So I've been on quite a food journey. I started Cookie Time 39 years ago when I was 21, and I've subsequently started 3 other food companies. And I've been experimenting with my own body a lot. Right now I weigh less than 150 pounds. At one stage in my life when I was in my home gym, drinking 6 raw eggs a day and training 6 times a week, I weighed 198 pounds. And so right now I'm the skinniest, lightest that I've ever been. But I'll tell you what, I will be bare feet, and I will run up the Port Hills, and I'll give anyone a run for their money up there, because I've got big lungs and I'm carrying no weight, so my powder weight ratio is huge and I can breathe. My lungs have probably doubled in size thanks to my breath work, and that's really powerful. So I've been on this journey to food and through food, and I was a vegan. I became vegan 7 years ago, and just basically there are 5 reasons why I went vegan or plant-based. Most people think that there are 3. The 5 reasons that convinced me to go plant-based. By the way, I'm no longer vegan, I'm now a lightivore, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the 5 reasons for going plant-based are, number 1, a plant-based diet is healthier for humans. This has been proven in the China study. Number 2, a plant-based diet is better for the environment. Number 3, the reason why people go vegan is for animal suffering. Right now we've got 71 billion animals, most of them born in a barn under a fluorescent light and die in a barn under a fluorescent light. It's an animal holocaust. John Lennon said if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be a vegetarian. Right? They're hidden, these horrific places. And everything is energy, and if you eat animals that have suffered, that will bring about suffering in you. So that's the 5th reason, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the 4th reason is superbugs. Basically, 80% of the antibiotics produced on Earth are fed to those animals, right, to keep them alive and growing faster. This is causing the superbug problem that they are struggling to fight, and it's not getting any airtime at the moment, but occasionally it pops up. And the 5th reason for moving to a plant-based diet, for me back then, was something that when I asked a Buddhist what his perspective, what's the Buddhist perspective on this? He said the Buddhist perspective is that if you eat animals that have suffered, you are supporting the cycle of suffering, giving rise to negative karma. So that's the karmic reason for not eating suffering. So that was my story 7 years ago. Then I became a vegan. A vegan is a vegan that eats honey. And a lot of the people that are eating honey are saying, look, the vegans that are eating honey are basically saying, look, we have to eat honey because there's no wild bees, and there's actually not much cruelty in the honey industry if the honey is done well by ethical beekeeper. So that was that story. So I've been living with that and experimenting with that, and now I've been sun gazing and breath work and developing a relationship with water as well. And during this period, I came to this idea that actually the solution to so many of the problems is not vegan. It's a new concept, a new frame for thinking about food. And the frame is this: we need to become lightivores. So what is a lightivore? Well, obviously there's a carnivore, someone that eats meat, a herbivore eats plants, an omnivore eats plants and animals. So what does a lightivore do? Well, a lightivore only eats food. This is the ideal position. A lightivore only eats food that grows under the same light they live. So if you live in Christchurch and bananas don't grow in Christchurch, you don't need bananas in Christchurch, right? The food we need to eat for the climate that we're in grows in the area we're in. So a lightivore would only eat food grown in the South Island of New Zealand. Now, the healthiest food that we can eat is leafy greens grown in our own backyard, cut and eaten fresh within 4 hours. And there's a reason why we need to eat the food within 4 hours, because plants emit light. The light that plants emit is like an aura, and you can measure the light coming off a plant with an instrument that can measure the light coming off a candle 5 miles away. And when you take a plant into a dark room with this device that can measure the light coming off it, and you harvest it, you separate the leaves from the roots. The leaves don't just stop emitting light immediately, they continue emitting light for another 4 hours. It's an exponential curve in reverse. So basically, if you eat food that's been harvested within 4 hours, you're actually eating light. And of course, everything we eat is processed sunlight. So the plants eat the sun, and then we eat the plants, or the plants eat the sun, the animals eat the plants, and we eat the animals. So a lightivore aims to only eat food that grows in the same area that they live, preferably hyperlocal. So hyperlocal in your own backyard is the best. In my case, in my own backyard is the best, and Golden Bay is the second best, and the South Island of New Zealand is the third best. So that's what I would like to do. And that's what I'm moving towards. I'm moving into a community where we're going to grow enough food to feed ourselves, because I want to experiment with eating 100% food grown in the same area that I'm living. So lightivore aims to eat as much, aims to only eat food that grows in the area that they live. And secondly, aims to get as much energy directly from the sun as they can. Right? Directly from the sun. So how does a lightivore do that? Well, make sure you get vitamin D by exposing your body to sunlight during the vitamin D producing hours. And there's a great app called D-Minder, which tells you when you can get vitamin D. And pretty soon it'll pop up. There's no vitamin D being produced in Christchurch yet, but in about 2 weeks, you'll be able to get vitamin D between like 12 and 1, and then it'll expand, and then it'll contract again. So we only eat food that grows in the same area that we live. We get as much energy directly from the sun as we can by sunbathing safely. Obviously, don't take your body out there and expose it to 2 hours of sun the first day. But maximise your sun exposure, maximise your vitamin D exposure. That's the second, that's the other thing that a lightivore does. So now what about animals? Well, if a lightivore found themselves in the snow, right, there are no plants growing in the snow, you can only eat animals. So, but unpacking, the problem with eating animal flesh, unpacking the light from animals creates a huge amount of, it takes a lot of energy, and it creates a huge amount of toxins that your body has to remove. The digestive system, think about it, you've put flesh in your body, right? Now your body's trying to digest it. It takes 3 to 5 days for it to digest. And in the process of digesting it, there are all these free radicals that your body's now got to get out of your body. I have a genetic malfunction. I'm an amazing methylator, which means that my body is really amazing at getting rid of the waste products. It's like I've got a huge exhaust system on my car, a big free flow exhaust, right? So
is that out the back? What's that? Is it out the back?
So basically if a lightivore found themselves in the snow, well, they have to eat meat. And isn't it amazing that we can eat meat? We can eat flesh, we can eat plants, and we can eat the sun. And if you want to explore this concept of eating the sun to its extreme, there is a documentary called Eat the Sun. And it is all about the concept of breatharianism. And a breatharian is someone that lives on air, but actually they live on air and water, they live on air and light. And they produce their own water because the cells produce water. So the lightivore only would eat meat, in this case, I would eat meat in the snow. But Eskimos, who live in the snow all the time, they only live for 40 years, right? Because eating animals is so challenging on the body. So that's the concept of a lightivore. And so I think that if everybody became a lightivore, we would solve many of the problems going round right now. That would mean we would all only be eating food that grows in the South Island of New Zealand. So all of those foods that we're eating that have come from the other side of the world, that are not fresh, that are probably possibly not organic unless you're choosing organic. And by the way, you must eat organic food. Non-organic food has a quarter of the nutrients, because if it's not in the soil, it can't be in the plant. Organic food doesn't cost, it pays. Go to farmers markets and eat the healthiest food you can buy. Because the single most important thing that we can do for ourselves, our family and the world is raise our own vibration, right? Put our oxygen mask on. We need to put our oxygen mask on first so that we can help everybody else. And that's really a key message that I want to leave with everybody, and that is that getting your needs met, taking care of yourself, nature's the vaccine, but you are the medicine. When you change, everything changes. Until you change, nothing changes. We need to be the change, Mahatma Gandhi, right? We need to actually make changes, and the most valuable changes we can make are changes to increase our energy, our vibration, our connection. So put your own oxygen mask on and be in charge. Let me just have a look. How much more time would you like me to speak for, Robbie?
Oh, how much have we got?
Oh, I don't know, I could go on for a while. Neighbourhood villages, I'll just share this one with everybody. So one of the things that I'm doing in Golden Bay is that I came to a realisation 5 years ago when someone told me an idea called neighbourhoods. It was the idea of regenerative eco-villages. So a regenerative eco-village is based on the idea that it takes a village to raise a child, and therefore it takes a regenerative village to raise an ecstatic child. So what is a neighbourhood? What is a regenerative eco-village? So first of all, it's about 160 people, right? 20 people is only a community. A village is 5 communities, and a village also has some spiritual place of worship, is also part of the village concept. The reason why we have 160 people in the village is because we're going to harness what's called the wisdom of the crowd. So the wisdom of the crowd says, and this is like the 80-20 rule or the tipping point or the 10,000 hour rule, the wisdom of the crowd says that if you take 160 people and ask them to guess how many jelly beans are in this jar, and then you average the guesses, the crowd will guess the right amount. And the BBC did a documentary on it. It's a 6-minute documentary, you can find it online. And basically they filled a jar with jelly beans, and they went and asked 160 people to guess how many jelly beans were in the jar, and the average of then they averaged the guesses. The correct number of jelly beans was 5,550, and the crowd guessed 5,555, proving that the crowd has wisdom. So this neighbourhood village of 160 people is going to have a flat structure where everybody has a vote, from the children through to the 93-year-olds. And I absolutely just want to concur with something that was said earlier about the importance of reconnecting the elders with the children, right? This is critical that we get that piece done, and that's what we would do in the neighbourhood. So a neighbourhood with 160 people, everything from newborns to 93-year-olds. What's that? 100-year-olds. I just used 93 because that was the age my grandmother died. Everything from newborns to 93-year-olds, right? And we need diversity, because diversity is the key. Biodiversity, and I believe this is why communities fail, because there's not enough diversity in a community. So in a neighbourhood village there would be 160 people, and we need a complete range of everything. We need gardeners, we need cooks, we need builders, we need mothers, fathers, teachers, yoga teachers, masseuses, everything. We need elders, we need shamans, we need high priestesses. We need the entire enchilada in our village. We grow enough food to feed ourselves. We have dehydrators and freeze dryers and preserving technologies, and we don't waste a thing. We're 100% off the grid. Every day at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock we sit down for the meal produced by the cooks, from the gardeners, food that's taken out of the garden that morning, and produced a buffet extravaganza. And the food in the neighbourhood needs to be the best food you've ever eaten every single day. One meal a day at 4 o'clock, and then the fridge is available for you to go and have whatever other food that you want. And the key thing is that we harness the wisdom of the crowd through decentralised, autonomous, organisational through a decentralised, autonomous organisational structure, a flat structure, right? Not a top-down structure where there's a head, someone at the head of it. We're all at the same level, and the children get a vote as well. Everyone gets to vote on everything. We have what's called a living manifesto. These are the rules and the protocols and how we run this community. And this is a living document that is constantly being iterated up. Basically what we need to create in a neighbourhood eco-village is everything. Our own governance system. We need to basically recreate the broken system on a micro level, right? On the smallest level possible, which I believe is around about 160 people. It's certainly more than 80. But time will tell as to exactly what that is. So this idea of a neighbourhood village is one of the things that I'm working on up there. So if anyone's interested in talking more about that, please see me afterwards. Feel free to send me an email. My email address is flourish@michaelmayell.com. And yes, I've got a few people that are ready to move onto a piece of land, and we've been looking at lots of land. And we're very excited, and the piece of land we found, the next speaker will be pleased to know, has no cell phone reception. So very excited about that, and I've been spending a bit of time actually in Golden Bay at a place called Whanariki, which has no cell phone reception, and you can notice the difference. It really is a problem, this electromagnetic frequencies that we're going to talk about with the next speaker. So look, the one thing that I didn't really get into too much was hemp. So I'll just finish with a little sermon on hemp. I've been on a hemp journey and been down the hemp rabbit hole now for about 6 years. I did smoke cannabis the first time in Hagley Park, 7 joints.
Simulated.
So I have used cannabis as an entheogen, as well as medicine and recreationally. I've used it, and so I've used it for all its different purposes. And there are not just 2 ways of taking cannabis, which is medicinally and recreationally. There are actually 5 ways of consuming cannabis. The first way you can consume cannabis is as a food. Hemp seeds are the most nutritionally complete food on the planet. They have the perfect ratio of omega-3s and omega-6s. They have the most digestible protein you can put in your body. They have magnesium and fibre. And literally, if you were to only be able to choose one food to have for the rest of your life and you wanted to live the best you could, this would be the one. That's the seeds. The leaves and the flower of the hemp plant are amazing medicine. And this is why the big pharma does not want this plant back in our lives, because it will put them out of business. Literally, we should be trying cannabis as our first, not our last resort. So as a food, first one, seeds, leaves, flowers, and the root is also an amazing food. Now, right now, the only part of the hemp plant that is legal is the seed if it is not whole and viable. So it must be squeezed into oil or crushed or in some other way. The viable whole seed is not legal. The leaves and the flower are not legal. There's no THC in this fucking plant. It's a vegetable, right? They just bloody yin and yang and change the bloody rules and give you one thing here and take it back there. It's just the same old bullshit, right? Okay, so as a food, as a medicine, it is the medicine of medicines. That they do not teach doctors about the endocannabinoid system. This is the master controller system of your body. No one knows anything about it, including doctors. That is the level that cannabis works at. That is why it is such a powerful medicine. So, as a food, as a medicine, as a drug, you can take it to get high or stoned, right? Now, there's a difference between getting high and getting stoned. This is the so-called recreational use of cannabis. Now, getting stoned is what most people do. Is what not most people do. This is the one that's the problem. Right, so getting stoned comes about by smoking indica. So there are 2 different strains of cannabis, indica dominant and sativa dominant. Indica dominant strains get you stoned and sativa dominant strains get you high. It's a bit of a generalisation, but it's accurate enough, right? Here in New Zealand, we've got 20,000 growers growing the cannabis for the medicinal and recreational markets. It's all indica, because indica grows 4 times as much plant material as sativa. So basically, you need to become conscious about what you're doing. If you want to relax and chill out and just get a great night's sleep, indica. But if you want to get high and go dancing or go and watch sunrises, then sativa. Right? And I think we need to swap alcohol at midnight for cannabis at sunrise. Right? That's the time to be having these amazing plant medicines. Food, medicine, recreational, getting high and getting stoned. As an entheogen. Right? So what is an entheogen? An entheogen is a plant that is used for spiritual purposes. The Rastafarians use cannabis for meditation. I find cannabis amazing for yoga, for meditation, and for dancing. It enhances all of those things. Sativa gets you high. It gives you creativity and energy. Right? It is a beautiful plant, and I encourage everybody to acquaint themselves with the plant. Food, medicine, getting high, getting stoned, and as an entheogen. I think that's it. I think I've got it covered there. So cannabis is also the only plant that can feed you, clothe you, house you, and heal you. We've talked about the healing. We've talked about the feed you, clothe you. I met a Japanese woman at the hemp hui in Golden Bay. For 5 years of her life, she wore only hemp. The Japanese, and she'd been cooking with hemp since she was 17. She wears hemp underwear. She makes herself. She's only ever worn hemp underwear since she was 17, right? And I said, well, that's a great idea. You've got the queen of plants next to your root chakra. That's a pretty powerful place to have the queen of plants. And that is right. Cannabis really is the queen of plants. You know, and that's why she was taken from us 80 years ago. And that's why now's the time to bring her back. Food, fibre, medicine, whatever. What? Housing, yeah. So hempcrete, my house. My house is a hempcrete house. My hemp caravan cave, solitude cave, whatever we want to call it. There's an article online about it actually. If you Google my name and hemp, you'll get it. Goodness, I think that's probably it. Why don't I just open up for a couple of questions? If there's any questions from anything that I've said, I'd be happy to answer them.
Come up to the mic. Yep. Point I don't need to use the mic. Michael, we've already stood with each other and sat with each other, and I was really hoping that you would point out the difference between hemp and cannabis, is it?
Yes.
As far as the THC level is concerned?
Yeah, good point.
Because the key issue that I'm standing up to bring to the floor now, a card to put on the table so to speak, is what I was taught and what I was brought up in the circles with swamis, different spiritual leaders, about what happens to the protective field around our auric and etheric energy fields. Around our auric and etheric energy field is a protective field. That protective field is damaged by using cannabis. Correct me if I use the wrong adjective, please, or wrong noun, whichever one it is. But it is damaged by the consumption of cannabis in a recreational form. That enables us to have that connection with wisdom, which is outside of ourselves, outside of what we have actually learned and earned through our own work. But it also, which is a gift, but it also leaves us vulnerable for our auric field to be inhabited by other entities. So that is spirits. And that's where you have words coming through your mind. And for myself, it took me years to learn to define the difference between what was myself and what was other things. And none of those other things that have inhabited my auric field, that I've spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on using different facilitators to help me get those things out so that I could realise my potential as a human being. None of those beings were in my field to help me. They were on their own agenda. So for myself, I fully acknowledge Mark or Michael's work. I love that sentence you said right in the beginning of your talk, Michael. It was basically economics. And it was the economics of expression. It was, and to me, when I built a village, I developed it for 5 years or so on an acre of land. I made bucket loads of mistakes. I consumed thousands of dollars worth of resources which had been given to me by wealthy people in my circle that had respect for me. They were just going to put the bulldozers through and say, I've got 3 houses, etc. So I gathered all these resources. Because I didn't know any better, I destroyed them. I didn't use them as well as what I could have. So I really, to me, Michael is, when I said when I walked in, I saw him talking, he's a weapon. He's a really productive, as a warrior I would label it a great tool or weapon, because he's got this amazing way of laying out a business structure, but I had to put that card on the table, uncle, brother.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, yep, thank you. Yep.
Can I just add to that, THC is the masculine side of the plant and the CBD is the feminine side of the plant.
Yep.
And so Richard Bayless is 1-to-1, is that good balance masculine feminine, because we are overbalanced of our matriarchal
Yes.
place in the world at the moment, and that's what's coming back into balance.
Beautiful, yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. So all the cannabis that's being grown at the moment is being grown for quantity and high THC. So the indica plants grow 4 times as much leaf material as the sativa plants, and they've been breeding for high THC. So yes, everybody's smoking much higher THC, like 20%, 25%, and much lower CBD, or 3% or less probably. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, beautiful. Alex is a green. Well, I'm not sure if she's a green fairy. Actually, she's a green goddess who knows a lot about cannabis. So if you want to talk about medicinal cannabis with anyone afterwards, I'm sure Alex would love to handle your questions. Any other questions?
Oh, I was just going to say regarding your solar worship. A lot of people here probably know that historically there have been so many traditions of that. Even going back to the Middle Kingdom in ancient Egypt, there was a great pharaoh who's actually considered the father of Tutankhamun. His name was Akhenaten, and he tried to change Egypt from its dark death cult, basically, to a solar and Aten-based religion. And even in ancient Rome, which is often considered to be the archetype of the oppressive tyrannical empire, there was a secret cult within that called Sol Invictus, which is the triumph of the sun. And so all through history, just like the swastika, for example, being demonized in our minds, but it's a sacred symbol in virtually every culture on this planet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. And yes, I mean, sun worshipping. And the other thing that, well, I've got one more little thing to finish up on, but if there are any more questions or comments,
Yeah, so how easy is it to grow hemp? And I heard that you need a license to grow it.
well, you need a license. Yes, you do. You need a license to grow hemp, and so it's ridiculous. But it looks like the law could be changing in the next 12 months. There's an application in Australia being put forward which would make hemp a vegetable, and when that happens, the whole plant will be available for everybody to grow, actually.
And is there anybody growing it in this area?
Yes, there's about 20 farmers in Canterbury growing it. There's a big hemp movement here in Canterbury. There's no one growing it at the moment in Golden Bay, but definitely there are here. Of course, hemp, just for clarification, hemp has 0.3% THC or less, so there's no way you can get high on hemp. But it is just the same plant that's been bred to not have the THC in there. Cannabis comes in 2,500 different varieties, from a 1-foot tall shrub that grows naturally in the snow in the Himalayas up to a 20-foot tall tree. And it's the only plant that grows on all 7 continents, or 6 of the 7 continents on the planet. It really is the queen of plants, and if you start going down the hemp rabbit hole, or the cannabis rabbit hole, you might not come out. Oh yeah, yeah. Yes, if you want seeds, send me an email. We can organise something on that tonight.
Or me.
Yeah, or Robbie. Robbie's got some too. So yeah, the whole raw hemp seed is the magic. And by the way, Cleopatra, she bathed in milk. Do you think it was cow's milk, goat's milk, or activated hemp seed milk? Activated hemp seed milk. And it wasn't just Cleopatra that was bathing it, and all the royalty were of the time, and they were rubbing it on their faces as well. Right?
Can you put your email address up on the board or something?
It's just, okay, yeah, we'll do that, sure. Okay, well look, the last thing I just want to share, so my two takeaways. One, fall in love with the unconditional light of our Father Son, without whose unconditional light Mother Earth would be a rock, and give gratitude to that light. Gratitude, the power of gratitude. We all know how powerful gratitude is, so what if we give gratitude for the most incredible gift that this planet is receiving, the unconditional light of our Father Son. The second thing I want to just remind you is to stop buying shit you don't need from cunts that don't care. Stop buying multinational made shit. If you're going to buy alcohol, buy it from a local person. Don't feed the beast, right? Take your money and keep it local. I'm saying in Golden Bay, if you live in Golden Bay, drink beer that was made in Golden Bay. Support local. Same thing applies here. Everything. I stopped shaving because I realised I was giving bloody Gillette $18 for 4 pieces of plastic that probably cost them 1 cent to make. So stop buying shit you don't need from cunts that don't care. Thank you very much.